Justin, I'm going to start with you. What is happening?
I don't know if there's a ton of historical precedent for this. I'm less worried about the idea that Elon Musk wasn't elected. I think it is kind of rich that Democrats are now upset about unelected bureaucrats having an effect on the American government. But the idea that somebody would come in this hard and this fast and unleash his band of teenage mutant ninja autists to go through the entire federal government registers is really, really remarkable. Now, U.S.A.I.D being the target is interesting because it is something that has tracked pretty bipartisan criticism in the past. I don't quite understand why the Democrats believe that this is their win. If I were them, I would gather around Social Security, Medicare, and possibly even the Pentagon if you wanted to have something that people liked more. U.S.A.I.D is a political loser, and I don't think anybody is going to particularly weep when whatever the same bizarre freak show projects that Rand Paul likes to rattle off that we spend money on. Those are all U.S.A.I.D projects. So there's not a lot of precedent here. This might not be legal. It really depends on the process by which all these recommendations are being made and how much Elon Musk has to say about actual redistribution of money, which he doesn't have any authority over. But I don't know what else to compare it to.
So my response, which I agree with most of what you're saying here, I think this can be broken down into two different things, by the way, because people will look at it and say, oh, great, he's going to save $10 billion. It's like throwing a half of a deck chair off the Titanic. And to their point, they are correct. But I will add to that point, too, that a culture is something that takes some work to redirect. I would be pissed if someone was stealing a stapler from me, even though it's federal government, they have a budget of $4 trillion, whatever it is. The second thing, though, which I think is brilliant move on the Musk Trump team, is that it is drawing attention to all the things that they want out, the LGBT causes, things like that. Like, we don't need to be funding drag shows in Madagascar or how gay squirrels mate in the Middle East. That's when people see that. By the way, those are not two real things, which, by the way, those are not too far from some of the things they do fund.
Well, it took me a second to say, is that real? You're kind of like,
yeah, exactly.
You may know something in the line item I don't know, Jim Iuorio. And I'd be like,
that's why it's a loser. It's because all you can, you just say one of these things and it takes the entire air out of any argument that you would have.
I got a personal note from one of the biggest names in finance media yesterday, a personal note saying, you put out that thing, it was misinformation about all these celebrities getting money from U.S.A.I.D to go visit with Zelensky. Okay, I said, I'm sorry, I was wrong about that. I don't like putting out misinformation. But in my head, I was thinking the things that are real are worse than that even too. But so this is a big winner, I think, for Trump and Musk. But to your point about how quickly they're doing things, I'm a markets guy. Markets can be disrupted, not necessarily by the direction, but by the abruptness of these changes. And those are some things that worry me a little bit about firing all the government workers, going through like with a hatchet. I get a little nervous.
Without citing evidence, Elon Musk also called U.S.A.I.D a radical left political psyop, a crazy waste of money, claimed the agency has been paying media organizations to publish their propaganda. Jury, what do you make of how Elon Musk is leveraging, obviously, Twitter X, which he owns? We know he spends a shit ton of money on it, but he's using it as, and I don't know how much the average American really sees on Twitter, like what ends up reaching the evening news, et cetera, because there's no way the average voter's like as terminally online as we all are. But how effective do you think this is for Musk to use his platform as the further, it's like the support of the bully pulpit, and it also really blurs the lines between like, well, who is the president? Who is kind of responsible for where we go from here?
Yeah, I don't know how much credence to give the like he's the president kind of stuff, because the actual president said that we should make the Gaza Strip a live work Monte Carlo corridor for casino gambling, dining, and dancing. So it's not like the actual president is ceding any part of the stage here. What this does do is create a huge fervor for elements of this country, which I think obviously are on the right wing and the more libertarian side of our aisle, but are also a lot of independents and the populist middle that doesn't like government spending that isn't helping them. U.S.A.I.D is if you just look at the frivolous stuff, right? So we're just looking at the DEI stuff, the Scottish non-binary bog dancing or whatever that they're paying for. That's before we get into what I think is some of the more sinister elements of U.S.A.I.D, which are allegations that the State Department and the CIA use it as cover operations to move money. And that is something that, again, has been bipartisan throughout the years to point out that this is a method by which this happens. I actually had a personal friend tell me that an ex-girlfriend of his wound up. So this, long story short, her family was moving money into the Middle East so they could give it to groups from the United States that the United States was not allowed to be giving money to. Where did that money come from? U.S.A.I.D. That's where it came from. That was the organization for which did it. And that's where I think we're looking at it. Now, the downstream effects that can be negative are things like we've seen. Government funding is now the number one thing on that website, or at least especially on the right it is. And so you have a lot of people that are looking at expenditures like Politico and drawing the conclusion that the Biden administration was paying $8.2 million to Politico for favorable coverage, which is not true because Politico will do that for free.
I'm glad you ended with that. I was about to go. No, but so the funny thing is the thing you guys ended up with giving money to media organizations is obviously the biggest part of this. We all know that Operation Mockingbird back in the 70s and 80s, where the CIA infiltrated media, is not a conspiracy theorist. That really happened. There is proof of that. Anytime the legacy media, one of their primary functions is to be a watchdog for government abuse. So anytime I see money crossing back and forth for that to me is bad. And by the way, I don't care what side of the aisle is doing it. The legacy media is supposed to point out things that they are doing wrong and take them to task for that if they are their biggest sponsors. And it just amazes me that this existed. And I'm so glad we know about it now. I mean, this has got to end yesterday.
Jim, are there parts of the general fight against waste, fraud, and abuse you do support? And is there anything you've already seen, Jim, in the first few weeks of this administration that makes you say, for the love of God, that has the chance to go disastrously off the rails?
So I did not like the notion of cutting so many federal government employees so quickly. I thought that could be damaging to the economy. Now, here's what's interesting, though, because I always look to the bond market to get the world's opinion of it. As you guys have seen, 10-year yields have gone from 4.8 to 4.4 just in the last month. So what that means, and I don't mean to get too wonky on this, what it means is that the rest of the world, there was a time over the last 2 years that appetite for buying our long duration debt was starting to wane. And to me, that was the world saying, you guys spend a crap ton too much money. You got to get your fiscal house in order before we're going to really be aggressive buying your bonds. Well, now people are buying our bonds a little bit more frequently and more freely. And supposedly we're cutting $1 billion a day of spending through Doge. I would say if I saw that headline on its own, I would say that's bullshit. When I see that headline coupled with the fact that there has been more demand for our duration bonds and yields are going lower, I'm thinking that somebody's convinced of it. I mean, I don't think people are thinking we are sailing too close to the rocks like they may have a year ago. Does that make sense to non-bond traders or no?
Makes sense to me.
Makes sense to me.
By the way, I don't mean, I'm not trying to talk down to anybody. I just
I appreciate that. I actually I have a markets question for Jim, which I'll start with Jim, and then anything Justin wants to add on. Jim, what is one thing every investor should remember when dealing with the volatile market under Donald Trump? So
this is actually a great point because I've been writing about this the last 2 days. When a president from the highest office in the land sends out these narrative word bombs, tweets that all of a sudden cause ripples and volatility in the market, that's an awful thing. And that's something that embarrasses me as an American. Now, that being said, a market that corrects hard or goes into a bear market, that's usually born on excessive complacency, like a years-long belief that the stock market only grinds higher. So paradoxically, his asinine comments that bring the stock market down, 3% in a day could be galvanizing the market a little bit for a better run. Every once in a while, someone's got to take a shot to the nards to remember. I'm trying to bring back nards. It was kind of like a 70s word. I hope you guys are coming.
Do it, man. Bring it back. We got you.
Every once in a while, someone needs a shot to the nards to remember that it hurts. Every once in a while, a risk needs to slap you in the face to remind you that risk exists. So this actually might be making for a stronger stock market, despite the fact that it's asinine that he keeps doing it.